Hey guys, I hope you're doing well, and today we're gonna talk about Duo Showdown. So, kind of apart from Showdown, the other mode I really play, kind of high trophies wise, is Duo Showdown, just because it's kind of you can be pretty consistent in Duo Showdown if you're good at it, and also it's a little bit nicer in terms of the skill required to play compared with 3v3, because in 3v3 you need two other really good teammates and you're more likely to get matched with pros above 900, and also if you lose one game above 900 you're gonna have to play like two games to get back to kind of before your loss. And if you learn how to play duos, winning consistently, getting first or second will not be hard, and kind of if you get good enough, you might be even able to push a brawler to rank 35 in Duo Showdown. And today we have a special guest. His in-game name is Hawk, and he has over 12,000 Duo Showdown win, which right now he's around 20. He has the 21st most Duo Showdown wins in the world, and so I said he's around 12,400 Duo Showdown wins. And he even said that he's so consistent that in around 2 weeks he was able to get 2,000 Duo Showdown win at his best. And that just shows that you can be consistent with duos. It's not random. It's probably, in my opinion, less random than actually solos, but there's definitely some situations where it's impossible to win. So I asked him today for a little bit of tips, and he gave them to me, and so we are going to be going over my tips. And also, kind of just to note, Hawk doesn't just play low Duo Showdown. He's pushed two brawlers to 1250 in Duo Showdown. He's pushed Jean to 1250 in duos, and he's also pushed Max in duos. He's pushed Max to 1250. So some of the tips. So one of the questions that I asked him was, is it better to be aggro or to control an area? And he always says that he prefers to have position at all times, and he likes to pinch other people with his teammates. And he also, and kind of on the topic of being aggro, in a lot of maps at the start, there's a lot of boxes concentrated in the center, and most times Hawk says he doesn't really go for the center boxes. He just tries to control, and in the end, if he needs to, he will outplay the other opponent usually. And so kind of as you see, it's like, especially on a map like power or energy drink, you don't really need a lot of elixir. We have 8 right now, which is, I guess, more than you really need, because in Duo Showdown, an energy drink, the energy drink gives you so much of an advantage if you get it. I think it like literally triples your attack. So it's really useful, and it makes it so pushing an energy drink, you don't really need to be overpower the opponent with elixir. But that being said, you do need to be aware that kind of it's a little bit more random, just because if the energy drink spawns for your opponents, it can be bad for you. They could beat you if they only have like 2 energy or 2 power-ups, and that's also kind of something that you have to realize. But Hawk says that when he's actually pushing high trophies, he tends not to push energy drink or meteor. And we'll go over some maps that he has pushed 1250 on in a bit, or at least maps that he likes to play. So another thing that I asked him about was kind of the current duos meta, which is actually duos is in a pretty bad spot at the moment just because of Sprout. So Sprout, because of his long range, it kind of ruins the purpose of playing. I think it ruins the purpose of Duo Showdown in that there's now very little versatility at high trophies. If you look on Brawl Stats and you look above 600 trophies plus in Duo Showdown, in many maps, in many comps for almost all duos maps, it requires Sprout. If you look at like the top 5 maps, each of them have Sprout in many cases. So it just shows that kind of you really need Sprout if you're pushing 1250. So Hawk was lucky in that he pushed his 1250 brawlers in before Sprout was released, so it was a little bit easier for him. But nowadays, it just, if you're pushing 1250 or even 1000 in most cases, you really need a Sprout. The map we pushed earlier, the solos map we pushed earlier, it's a little bit better because it's so open. So I'm guessing something like Forsaken Falls, you can kind of play without a Sprout. But one map that Hawk really liked before was one map that he really liked before that kind of got ruined by Sprout was Safety Center. Before Sprout was released, you could play a lot of different comps, even at high trophies. But nowadays, you can't really play Sprout, or you can't really play most comps. You have to have a Sprout on your team. But he did say kind of if you want to counter Sprout, you can play Jackie or Mortis. Those brawlers both work. It's not 100% chance that it doesn't like directly counter them, but you have a higher chance if you have one of those two brawlers on your team or another Sprout. That's probably the best option. And kind of another thing I asked him about was kind of like does he camp? Like, camping is often something that is looked down upon in Showdown and in Duo Showdown, but he does say that kind of to get control and also to win in most cases, you do need a camp. You can't just kind of run around, walk around everywhere, or you're going to get sniped by a Piper in a bush, or you're going to walk into a bush and get sniped by a Shelly who's camping with her ult. Just much safer to control your ground to camp. And he also says that he's not camping for he's not just camping for camping's sake. He camps for a reason, and usually that's so that like a 10 power cube, because normally even if you're one of the best Duo Showdown players, you're still going to have trouble with getting a lot of energy. You're not going to be consistently getting 10 elixir each time. So he says that he camps so that he doesn't piss off the 10 elixir, 10 power cube team. And he also camps to bait people into kind of running into the bush so that he can have an easier time killing the opponent. So in one of these clips, you'll see that he's camping in a bush while I lead him to lead the enemy to his bush, and we're able to take out a team that way. So he's saying that, like, camp with a purpose. Don't camp because, well, you're just not good and you just want to kind of idle there for free trophies. And he says even he'll camp in the smallest grass, and that's also often a psychological strategy because people don't usually check, like, if it's like a 3 square grass, people don't usually check there because they think no one's stupid enough to camp there, but sometimes that actually works and people don't see him. And also he says that he doesn't really kamikaze. Kamikaze is basically he sacrifices himself for the teammate, but he does say the teammate with the lower amount of power-ups, if the other teammate does die, he becomes less important than the teammate with more elixir. So in many cases, if they're getting pressured, Hawk, if he has less elixir than his teammates, he will sacrifice himself just so that the team doesn't die. And he says this is especially prevalent on robo maps. If he's being pressured by another team, he will lead the robo to the other team and maybe damage them a little, but basically just sacrifice himself for the greater good of the team. And also he says kind of when he's kamikaze, some brawlers actually don't require some brawlers don't require a lot of power-ups. So Jean is a good example of that because Jean's really only used in duos for his ult. It can really change the game in a lot of circumstances, and he says during his 1250 push there were many circumstances where he was being pressured by 3 people or 2 different teams, and just one pull really changed the match and allowed them to win. And with Jean, he plays a little bit more aggressive just to at the start, just to get his ult, because Jean with ult is just so strong, and it's essential if you're pushing Jean to always have his ult, and that also acts like a psychological effect, so that some teams do not push you because they know that they're gonna die if they push you. And here we're going up against the clip that I was talking about. So Hawk is camping in a bush, but I'm in this case I'm trying to lead the opponents because they didn't see Hawk enter the bush. So I'm trying to get the opponents to approach Hawk. And you can see kind of the Dynamite isn't really aware, or the Rico actually ends, so Hawk gets an easy kill, and we are able to kill the Dynamite through Hawk's pulls. And yeah, so he's just one of the things, especially why he hasn't pushed like a rank 35 brawler since Sprout was released in duos, is just because he doesn't really like the competitive meta right now in solos or duos, because kind of Sprout really, I think, ruins the game in duos, and I think everyone was expecting a bigger nerf. Definitely the range nerf was needed, but I think kind of his shot's still way too fast and really makes it hard to play other throwers. Like Mr. P gets completely outclassed by Sprout. And yeah, so the last thing that he wanted to give was a shout out. He wanted to shout out his partner Apple. He pushed with Apple to rank 35. He pushed his Gene to the rank 35, and Apple pushed his B to rank 35. And Apple is also a really good pro player. I heard Hog told me that he's one of the best Bs in the world, and I definitely believe him. I've watched Apple play B, and he doesn't miss his shots, and he is also just generally kind of really good at all brawlers. He's currently pushing Colt to 1250. That's his goal, and I wish him great luck on that. With this being said, I'm going to end the video here. If you have any other questions for duos, please ask in the comments below, and I'll try to get Hawk. I'll try to contact Hawk with the questions and tell him or ask him the question, and he can maybe answer it for me. And because he's obviously the better player, and I want his tips over my own tips. With that being said, thank you for watching the video, and I will see you soon in the next one.